Good morning. My name's Eric Greenberg, and I'm an addicted entrepreneur. Web 2.0 has been a striking success. It's been any-to-any computing, and it's changed the way we live, work, entertain, and communicate. The problem is that the world is nodal. It's centered around devices, portals and places, services, networks, software platforms, etc. These nodes are optimized primarily for a particular use case. The integration of multimodal functions is complex and frustrating, and it's not centered around you and your experience. There's little cooperation and integration and interoperability. Seamlessness is a myth, putting aside all the claims of vendors. Think about all the displays that you might carry around with you. Phone, iPod, BlackBerry, GPS in your car, gaming console at home, PC, how many of them and more. None of them work with each other properly. They don't display each other's information, and it's kind of frustrating. They're not here to serve you. They're here to provide you functions, and then they get extended all the time. This nodal world will go extinct, and Web 3.0 will replace it. People want environments and experiences. This is important. Environments and experiences, not places and things that are poorly integrated and difficult to use. This will not be one button, one touch, or one device. And loyalty to install base means existing players are likely not to deliver the next generation. The 2.0 gains are admirable, the marketing savvy, but why do we have to recreate our state all the time? Why are we interfacing instead of the converse? Web 3.0 is the next generation. It's the anything, it's the anything everywhere era, the anything everywhere era. One can do most anything they want from wherever they are, on multiple devices, in multiple places, by multiple means. The focus is on utility, and it's an environment which is a persistent abstraction layer, providing a user experience that is simple, fulfilling, and functional. Why doesn't your life travel with you? Seamlessly, device independent. We'll see a new generation of interactivity where you are served by a transcendent environment over the node which you decide to use. The killer app is functional simplicity within multiple forms in an abstraction layer. It's about integration user experience, not about product extension install base. That's the key point. It becomes your interactive concierge and reflects your persona. It does not replace, rather it interacts and optimizes. It's coming, and not from where you expect. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dick Lampman, and I'm the VP for Research at Hewlett-Packard. Mark's given us quite a bit of latitude on the topic today, and the one I'd like to say a few words about is about globalization. This has been discussed quite a bit at this meeting, and to be honest, I think most of the discussion about globalization has been fairly gloomy, perhaps with the exception of our colleague from Wipro, who seemed to have a little different view. Most of what we've been hearing about is the facts, how the U.S. is behind in the production of graduating engineers, questions about why young people in the U.S. are not motivated to go into sciences and engineering, about how government support for science and technology has tapered down since the end of the Cold War, and how engineers elsewhere in the world are willing to work for a fraction of the salaries that are paid in the U.S. So it would be easy to be pessimistic if you listen to all of that. But for me, to be quite honest, I am definitely very optimistic, perhaps a minority, but definitely an optimist in this area. And I agree that the technology industry has irreversibly changed and globalized, and I don't see that changing at all. But I also don't believe that this is a zero-sum game. And in fact, that there are multiple outcomes that we can see as the world globalizes. Many of the companies represented in this room have in fact been adapting to this new environment, are in fact thriving in it, and are still generating more employment in the US, wonderful new jobs, as well as harnessing this new globalization industry. And I think the reasons that we should be optimists on this is, first of all, every company represented in this room is a company that has actually thrived on change, dramatic changes in prices, new markets, new customers, new applications. We still live and operate in a very unique business environment and business culture here in the U.S. We still have many of the world's finest universities here, and we still have an environment that is attracting many of the best and brightest from around the world. Now, I am not the one that would claim that we don't have problems we need to work on, but all of these changes are things that actually create new opportunity for us. And so the thought that I'd like to leave each of you with is that while we do need to work on some of these problems that have been identified earlier, that I don't think we should put all of our focus on that. And I think what we need to do as individuals is make sure that we're not driving the kind of pessimism that is actually going to discourage young people from investing their careers in this industry. Thank you.
Pretty clear to everybody here that I'm not Susannah. A couple of good lines were stolen earlier. My name's Randy. I'm addicted to oil. The slide showed that my previous company was Latigo Petroleum. I'm no longer with Latigo Petroleum. What I wanted to do with my 4 or 5 minutes today was talk a little bit about how we're going to bridge, I think, from what's principally been fossil fuels to other alternative energy sources. In the last 15 years, we've been able to create 3 very successful fossil fuels exploration companies. Total exit value of those companies was well north of $1.2 billion at prices nowhere near what we have today. We were able to do that principally by using technology that wasn't available 10 or 15, 20 years ago. Mostly having to do with seismic 3D, intensive computer usage. We've done a lot of things in this industry that we couldn't have done not too very many years ago. It's going to be interesting to see over the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, how we bridge the gap into alternative fuels and solve some of the issues that we heard earlier. I think it's going to be pretty exciting. You know, the exploration and production business has been a kind of a technology user from the very start. We've drilled in the 4 corners of the world. We're drilling in 10,000 feet of water today. We're drilling where people don't normally go and live. We've done that through technology, and we're getting better and better and better at it. And I'm going to give one example of what we can do now that we couldn't have done not too many years ago. And again, principally from technology. We can take a space 3 to 4 times the size of this room. That's not a big space. We can drill wells off of that pad, and I can drill directionally 3 miles over here, 3 miles, 4 miles over here, 3 or 4 miles here, 3 or 4 miles, and I can drill 10 or 12 wells off of that singular location. I can cover an aerial extent of 20 or 30 miles off of a space, again, not much larger than 3 or 4 times the size of this room. We can do that with a higher degree of confidence now because some of the things we can do seismically, we have tremendous more faith in our resolution than we've ever had. We can get there. We can bridge the gap between where we are today and where we need to be with alternative fuels. It's going to take some resolve and some political effort, but we can get there. So I thank you, Mark, for allowing us to talk, and I look forward to seeing you next year. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Simon Hackett. My company builds broadband networks in Australia. I drive a Prius. Most of my aviation is done in sailplanes, and the book I'm currently reading is called The End of Oil, and I can highly recommend it. I wanted to talk today a little about the 3 to 5 year view in part of my industry, in the broadband industry, in terms of where video content and its distribution and its viewership is happening in the presence of real consumer broadband networks that work adequately. One of the things we're starting to see is that attempts to geographically limit the spread of that content, who can watch it and in which countries, will generally fail. One of the ironies is that DVD region coding doesn't work. I can buy CDs through Amazon and they will be shipped to Australia perfectly well, but if I go to Google Video and try to buy an episode of a TV show, I can't buy it because my packets don't have the right number on the top of them. That stuff is actually limited to the US today, in the same way that region coding used to work. But for me, that's an engineering problem. I'm an engineer and I'll fix that, whatever the content providers think about it. So that will get fixed. Real broadband leads to an interesting sort of television, and I think in the spirit of the conversations we've had already this week about simplified user interfaces, real TV over broadband goes from 500 channels, not to 5,000, but to 5 channels. But those 5 are channels that you really like because they're mixed a la carte for you on demand as you decide to sit down and watch it. So they're the 5 best TV channels you've ever seen because they fit you like a glove. That's what real broadband will do. But it'll still look like television. It'll still stay approachable, still have that user interface that looks like a remote. But you no longer have to go through 57 channels to discover there's nothing on. Every channel has something you want to watch. Video content distribution chains are being squeezed, but so are video production chains. I think within the 3 to 5 year window, we are certainly going to see the first fan-funded TV shows, the first TV series that people actually want to watch so much that they cause them to exist. So rather than just hoping that Paramount produces something for you, a group of people that like it will do it. I think that's going to happen. My likely answer in terms of what the series is, it'll be Series 2 of Serenity, a show which interestingly never was aired in Australia, but I watched it. Welcome to BitTorrent. Thank you for coming. But I think those fans will discover something amazing when they wind up funding that show. They'll discover that not only have they caused that second series they wish to exist to come into existence, but when they sell it back to Paramount, they'll discover that they're actually investors in an equity proposition, not just fans. So the internet compresses not just the distribution side of that video chain, but it'll start compressing the production side as well, until you really do have idea through to video with the internet in the middle and nothing else. That kind of disintermediation gets very serious indeed. And lastly, one of the things that happens in that broadband world is an awful lot more traffic flows on those networks. And my perception of the broadband pricing models in the US is they're actually a little bit broken. They were built in an era when it seemed like a sensible idea to price internet access as if you were running an all-you-can-eat restaurant and you charge a fixed amount of money, and that was great, and everyone consumed a rational amount of food. But you know, something happened in the last 5 years, which is suddenly all of your customers develop the same appetite as Homer Simpson. That's what BitTorrent's done to that world, and the costs are rising dramatically. It's not free to move bits around. The routers cost money, more than the pipes do. And so you have to evolve the pricing model in some manner to keep up with that. It's actually not illegal, immoral, or fattening to charge more to deliver more. And my customers in Australia exemplify this. We charge more than the average, we deliver more than the average. That's actually okay. Think about the car industry. We don't all drive exactly the same cars. So that model is going to evolve somewhat and turn into a situation where the pricing models for ISPs actually get flexible enough to keep carrying all this content without feeling stressed, without needing to invent new laws to regulate it. You just need competition and a thought about where the value chain is to sit, and it all works. Thank you.
Rothrock. I'm a managing partner at Venrock Associates. Just a one-line kitchen tour of Venrock. Venrock originally started as a Rockefeller family venture capital arm in 1938 by Lawrence Rockefeller. In 1969, the family put $5 million into a private partnership and started this thing called Venrock. Today, it's about $1.3 billion. We have offices in Menlo, New York, and Boston. We have 10 partners. We've done about 400 deals since 1969. The first deal we did was Intel, which was a pretty good deal to do. Even recently, the stock has done pretty well. But most importantly, the firm started in the 30s backed in entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurs is what venture capital is all about, really. I wish I could be an entrepreneur. I'm more of a technologist. My background is engineering, and I like gadgets. So I have tried to find entrepreneurs who also like gadgets and also like to build things and make things better. Entrepreneurs, even during the dark days post the bubble popping, we're still entrepreneuring. And there's been a couple of comments about it, but the lack of R&D done in corporations these days and the declining amount of government funding is driving more and more wealthy people and people like me to do venture capital. In fact, I personally am involved in a number of energy projects that couldn't get funded on Sand Hill Road because the entrepreneurs were not really credible, or the projects are too far out there, they didn't have the right characteristics. Venture capital has become somewhat of a fad business, in my opinion. There's a lot of people chasing the latest, greatest thing, but importantly, the entrepreneurs know where to seek out the capital, and they will come to people like us. The government has also become very politicized in its funding resources. I think this has driven a lot of entrepreneurs underground, so to speak, or into their garages. And in Silicon Valley alone, I have seen so many roll-up garage projects where some retired Intel executive, for example, has been working for 15 years on some project, and it's just now popular, and so he comes out, and off we go. So it's a pretty interesting world right now. If you've been in the venture capital business as long as Venrock, and I've been here for 20 years, you get to see a lot of very exciting people. Just a comment or two about the current future trends. I was particularly impressed with the previous presentation about energy and oil in particular, but I'm reminded of the movie Apollo 13. If you saw that movie, there's a scene where the crisis has occurred. They've got a blackboard up there, and he's drawing the orbit around the moon. We've got to get the capsule from here to here. And this little nerdy engineer comes out of the back with his horn-rimmed glasses, and he says, we have to have energy. Energy is everything. Without energy, it all stops. Life stops. Well, it's kind of like that on planet Earth, I think. And energy is very important. I'm a nuclear engineer by background, so when energy got very hot in the venture capital industry in the last several years, I found myself with more deal flow than I know what to do with. And we are presently investing pretty aggressively, as are many of the other firms, Kleiner and Greylock and everybody, into energy. But you have to be pretty careful because there are a lot of energy solutions that are pretty crazy and don't quite fit the economics of my industry. Last comment about where I think a lot of the future trends are for non-energy related investments would be in personal technology. I think Steve Jobs did it again with the iPod. He has personalized technology. I mean, Swatch did it with the watch and Jobs did it with the iPod, but it's all coming down. The cost of bandwidth is cheap. The cost of, silicon is free. I think Andy Rappaport said about 25 years ago, there'll come a time when silicon is just free. And it seems to be getting close to that now. So it's all about the software, it's all about the content, and it's all about the cost of getting it from point A to point B, which is free. So we're looking at personal technologies, clothing, communications, self-publishing, learning, all kinds of very interesting web-based things when you can spread this all over the world. My time is up. I think I'll leave it.